Unbelievably, my husband's legacy led me to an amazing farm, but my son's unexpected call changed everything. The words echoed in Emily's mind, trapping her in a whirlwind of emotion. She sat alone in her quiet classroom, the familiar scent of chalk dust mixing with the lingering aroma of the blooming flowers outside. Tom's death had snatched away the future they had envisioned, a sprawling organic farm nestled in the rolling hills of Pennsylvania. It had been a shared dream, an oasis where both their lives might flourish. But now, that dream felt like a painful ghost. After the attorneys' meeting, Emily could hardly process the news of the hidden land Tom inherited. As she visualized the wild overgrowth, she felt a glimmer of hope push against the heaviness in her chest. The prospect of breathing life back into that farm ignited old ambitions, awakening her spirit just as the first rays of spring light spilled into her darkened world. Yet with hope came fear of failing to honor Tom's legacy and transforming those lush expanses into something meaningful for her students and the community. Emily's apprehension morphed into a current of doubt as she pressed against the scratched wooden desk, her racing thoughts echoing the cowbells from the farm next door. Could she really manage this? A voice deep inside whispered her inadequacies. The crumbling fences and dilapidated barns threatened to laugh at her from the shadows. Visions of Tom surfaced. He had believed in her strength, yet now it felt like a fragile thread unraveling at her fingertips. In the midst of this turmoil, a sudden call from Jake shattered her fragile contemplation. Her son, whom she hadn't spoken to in months, his voice cutting through her defenses like a summer storm. When he revealed his plans to sell the family farm, it felt like a knife twisting in her heart. She silently recalled the moments they shared, the laughter, the comfort in each other's presence, now distorted by grief and neglect. Selling the land was Jake's way of fleeing, an instinctive avoidance that clawed at her insides. Caught in the undertow of their conflicted emotions, Emily felt the weight of a decision looming. Could she forge a path to repair their relationship, or would her push to save Tom's South dream drive him further away? The morbid irony didn't escape her. Was she destined to lose both the farm and her son? The anger was palpable, fueled by an overbearing sadness. She yearned to shake the frustration from her limbs. She should fight him, tell him how important it was to preserve their family heritage, to confront him about the unspoken resentment buried between them. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As their confrontation drew closer that evening, Emily's heart raced, uncertainty tightening around her throat like a vice. What if she couldn't reach him? The thought of their history stifled her breath. Faced with the reality that the land could slip through her fingers like grains of sand, she knew they both needed to confront something larger than just the future of the farm. The anxiety churned in her stomach, a reminder that the past could never truly be buried. Tom's presence loomed, thickening the air around them as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows over the land. The future now lay suspended in the delicate balance of love and desperation, leaving Emily at the edge of a precipice, where everything she held dear threatened to unravel. Emily stood in front of the cracked mirror in the dim light of the bathroom, her reflection a blurred image of resolve and uncertainty. The bathroom tiles were cold beneath her bare feet, and she consciously willed herself to breathe deeply, letting the air fill her lungs in a deliberate effort to ground herself. Every fiber of her being yearned for connection, yet fear crawled up her spine like ivy, entwining itself around her every thought. Tonight was important. It was a crossroads where she could either stand firm for what she believed in or let the weight of her grief, the loss of Tom, and the growing chasm with Jake dictate her actions. She needed to find the courage to tread into unfamiliar territory, to confront not only her son but also her own insecurities, and reclaim the hope of that farm. It felt as if the farm were calling to her, echoing through the cracks in her heart, urging her to honor Tom's dreams in every whisper of the wind. As the sky gradually darkened into a blanket of navy blue, Emily grabbed her coat, her fingers trembling slightly as she slipped it on. The chill was invigorating, awakening her senses as she stepped outside. Each footfall felt heavier than the last, like the earth beneath her was not just gravel and soil but layers of memories, reminders of laughter, love, and support that had filled years of her life. The stars above shimmered, flickering reminders that even amidst darkness, light could break through. Driving to the farm was surreal. The landscape transformed from streetlights and houses into expansive fields, each turn unveiling a world faded yet familiar. The sight of the dilapidated barn came into view, its silhouette looming against the horizon, a marker of the life she once cherished. How easily it could be lost to the shadows of neglect and abandonment, just like her relationship with Jake. Upon arrival, she parked the car, needing a moment to gather her thoughts. She could see the faint glow of lights emanating from within the old house. Jake was there, probably pacing, wrestling with his own demons. What would she say when she saw him? The whirlwind of emotions blossomed into a single question: how could she possibly articulate what she felt? With her heart in her throat, she pushed the front door open. It creaked ominously, sending a shiver down her spine. Jake stood there, silhouetted against the light, his expression a mixture of surprise and apprehension. The sight of him clenched her heart, his brows furrowed and distress mirrored her own internal struggle. "Mom," he began, his voice thicker than she remembered. The vulnerability in his eyes broke through the barrier of resentment she had built up. It softened her resolve just a fraction, but enough to remind her that they shared the same grief, even if they expressed it differently. "Jake," she started, her voice steady despite the storm of emotions raging within. "We need to talk about the farm." The air between them crackled with tension. She desperately sought to bridge the gap his words had created when he hinted at selling the land. In that moment, she grasped a fundamental truth: they needed to face more than just the farm. The fight was also within them, a battle of familial love against the backdrop of inherited legacies. She stepped further into the room, the warmth of the house enveloping her. "We've both lost Tom," she said, her voice trembling. "This isn't just about the land, it's about our family. We owe it to him to figure this out together." As she spoke, the shadows in the room seemed to shrink. She felt the air shift, perhaps he was ready to listen. She dared to hope that the path they would walk now might lead to healing, not just for the land but for their fragile relationship as well. The first step had been taken, but the most daunting conversation still loomed ahead. And as Emily looked into Jake's eyes, the urge to fight for their legacy rushed through her. Would they navigate the rocky terrain of their emotions ahead? Would she reveal the strength she felt buried beneath layers of grief? The moment of truth was upon them, each word poised to shape their future. "Are you ready to confront what's at stake?" Her voice was tinged with both fear and determination, setting the stage for the most significant decision of their lives. Emily's question lingered in the air, heavy with unspoken truths and promises yet to be fulfilled. Jake's gaze faltered, and for a moment, uncertainty reigned. She could see him wrestling with his own emotions, the struggle of deciding whether to lean into their shared grief or retreat into the protective armor crafted from resentment. "Mom." He exhaled sharply, running a hand through his disheveled hair. "It's not that simple." But for Emily, nothing had ever felt more urgent. Her heart raced, caught between the looming specter of inaction and the thrill of confronting their painful history. "What do you mean?" "Every day we wait, the farm, we lose a piece of the dreams Tom had for us. We can't let that happen, Jake." Jake's eyes narrowed, revealing the raw pain behind his hardened exterior. "You think I want to sell it?" "I don't. But it's not just about the land. It's the memories, the weight of it all. I don't want to feel trapped, suffocated by moments we can't reclaim." His words resonated, striking a nerve in Emily. She felt that weight too, and it pressed against her chest like an anchor to deep waters. Loss often manifested as fear, the fear of being consumed by what once was, but she had realized through countless nights of wrestling with her thoughts that holding on to the past wouldn't breathe life into their upcoming future. "Jake," she started, her voice steadying. "It's okay to feel trapped. We just have to find a way to honor Tom's memory without being stuck by it. We can't let the farm crumble beneath us. Tom loved it, and so do we." "Do we?" He shot back, stepping closer, his voice a whisper yet charged with intensity. "You're not the only one who lost him. I can't pretend it doesn't hurt, that every corner of this place doesn't hold a memory of him laughing, of him teaching us, of him being gone." Emily felt the heat of those words, the rawness of emotion electrifying the air around them. She read the conflict swirling in Jake's eyes, a desperation for freedom battling against the longing for connection. "I know it hurts," she replied softly. "But it's not an acknowledgement of pain that will honor him. It's what we do next. Wouldn't you want something more than regret?" He seemed to recoil slightly at her words, and for a heartbeat, she feared she had pushed too hard. But then, in the depths of his gaze, she saw the flicker of a shared resolve take blaze against despair. "Maybe," he said tentatively. "But how? How do we move forward when everything feels like a reminder of what we've lost?" Her answer, she realized, lay not in the steps they would take, but in the promise they made to each other. "We will create new memories," she stated firmly, an undeniable conviction washing over her. "Every bit of grief we hold is also a measure of love, Jake. Let us transform that into something positive, something that would have made Tom proud." As they stood in the fading light of their childhood home, surrounded by remnants of their past, both could feel the walls beginning to crack, allowing for the dawn of understanding. The tension that had permeated the room seemed to dissipate, replaced by a tentative willingness on both sides to explore what could lie ahead. Emily took a step closer, her hand reaching out toward him. "Let us meet halfway. Let us think about how the farm can be a place of healing, not just a marker of heartache. What if we made it more than just a reminder?" Jake hesitated, then reached out, capturing her hand in his. The connection felt electric, bridging gaps created by sorrow and rebuilding the trust that had frayed over the months. "What do you have in mind?" A sense of urgency ignited within Emily, a path forward opening in her mind. "We could revive it, build something new. We could have a community garden, or workshops, family gatherings. Opening the space to growth could breathe new life into those memories." Jake's brow furrowed as he considered. "A community garden? Something that brings people together," she urged. "Tom always believed in being a part of something bigger than ourselves. It's time we did that. We honor his legacy by letting his spirit flow through the farm, not just as a place, but as a living symbol of he brought us together." In that moment, a flicker of hope ignited between them, teasing out reflections of possibility. They had crossed a boundary, one that threatened to solidify into the path of healing if they dared to push further. But as they stood there, hand in hand, sharing a fragile yet growing determination, Emily knew their journey was just beginning. They would have to confront other forces, the memories, the community ties, the practicalities of rebuilding, and decide if they could truly embrace change together. "Can we really do it?" Jake asked, his voice a mix of doubt and curiosity. "If we're willing to face it together, I believe we can," she answered, squeezing his hand tighter. The foundation of their venture now rested not only on bricks and mortar but on the willingness to confront everything that made them, good and bad. And with that incomplete resolve, they turned to face the daunting horizon ahead of them, unaware of the storms yet to come. Would they have the strength to endure that uncertainty? What could the future hold when haunted by the past? Emily's mind raced as thoughts collided with each other in a cacophony of aspiration and dread. The weight of Jake's softened grip was reassuring yet intensified her awareness of what lay ahead. They had exchanged possibilities, yet the very act of breathing new life into their shared history now felt like an insurmountable challenge. Stepping back, she began to consider the enormity of their task. Fresh ideas danced in her mind, flashing pictures of sun-drenched rows alive with vegetables and vibrant flowers. The distant laughter of children playing in the fields echoed, filling her with both longing and anxiety. How could she transform nostalgia into a vibrant reality when so much felt cemented in sadness? "Let us start small," Emily suggested, seeking to steady her resolve. "We can set aside a section of the land for the garden first. We'll pick a weekend, invite a few friends. It'll be a soft start, a way to gauge the response, see if people are interested in getting involved." Jake shifted his weight, contemplating the notion. "Do you think people would really care? Would they want to come back here?" It's part of the history of loss. His voice wavered, betraying a tangle of hope and trepidation. The implication of his words cut through her. He feared that the memories they cherished might overshadow potential joys. They were tangled together, like the braided vines of the farm, yet they couldn't be severed without consequence. Maybe, she countered, but maybe they could shine through the shadows too. Determination surged through her as she leaned into the adage of building upon shared grief. People resonate with healing. They want to be a part of something that nurtures life, especially in times that have been tough for all of us. Just like Tom would have wanted. Jake's jaw tightened, a mixture of skepticism and admiration flickering in his emerald eyes. He took a slow breath, and she noticed how the muscles in his shoulders eased slightly. It would be different. Exactly, Emily pressed. Do you remember last summer, how much fun we had when we all planted those flowers for Mom? How good it felt to do something together. She witnessed the ghost of a smile tugging at the edge of his lips, and seizing on that moment of vulnerability, she pushed further. What if we invited those same friends we worked alongside? We could rekindle those connections. We can't let fear hold us back. This is our chance to create new memories. Inwardly, Emily felt the call to action growing more fervent, a determination rising as quickly as an early spring green. Yet, a dark mingling of self-doubt lurked in the corners of her mind. Could she truly motivate others? This new venture would pull on friendships frayed by the passage of time, confrontation with grief, and fears about the future. What if there was resistance? She stumbled over the implications. I'll help, Jake finally agreed, the resolve settling across his features, but the anxiety still remained. But if we do this, we're opening more than just soil. It's a Pandora's box. That's just it, Emily replied, her voice steadying with intention. We have to embrace the discomfort. It's about finding a way to honor Tom while allowing ourselves to step into something new. We can't keep living in shadows. There's so much life left in this farm to uncover. As she spoke, a rush of warmth washed over her. She recognized the challenge as part of a greater journey toward rediscovery. Emily understood this shared pursuit held the potential to heal not just their bond, but also the fractured relationships that intersected through their lives. Yet still, a tight coil of uncertainty remained in the pit of her stomach. There were countless intricacies awaiting their attention, and the looming question of community response skimmed like a whisper beneath her resolve. Could they navigate those waters without being swept into a tide that threatened their growth? The two stood at the intersection of vulnerability and ambition, anticipation coursing through them. Emily could feel the ambivalence stirring beneath the surface as she looked into Jake's eyes, almost sensing the fabric of the past tugging at them. What if everyone doesn't want to join us? Jake asked, the fear creeping back into his voice. Then it's still worth trying, she replied, her determination unwavering. This isn't just about them. It's about us, about finding our footing. But we'll never know if we don't take the step. With that, they turned toward the fields that stretched before them, filled with neglect yet brimming with potential. Emily felt the electricity of their unspoken resolve and knew they stood on the precipice of a new chapter, one riddled with challenges, but also ripe with the promise of renewal. But turning back to the house, she sensed an unshakable knot forming in her stomach. Shadows loomed large, casting doubts over her optimistic projections. What held them back could also push them forward, but she feared the upheaval of buried feelings that could surface. The impending storm of confrontation wasn't just about the farm, it threatened to force revelations about their past choices. A thought flared to the top of her mind. Would they be prepared for what was left unspoken when they finally cracked open that box? Are you ready for this? Jake asked, eyeing the expanse of land before them. Let us find out, she replied, her heart pounding, enveloped in uncertainty yet unwilling to step back now. They had made the choice to approach the daunting future together. As they turned toward the task ahead, the echo of their unrelenting grief blended with the pulse of their nascent hope, forging a path through the dense fog of their shared past. The realization settled in like an unwelcome intruder. The real journey was only beginning. Emily awoke the next morning with the sun spilling through her window, illuminating dust motes swirling in the air. It felt as if the light was nudging her awake for the day ahead, the day she had declared to begin transforming the land. The moment brought a mixture of hope and trepidation. The promise of possibility was tinged with the fear of what they were about to confront. Coffee brewed in the kitchen, and the rich aroma wrapped around her like a cloak. It was oddly comforting, a routine that anchored her amidst the uncertainty. Yet there was no time for complacency. She had set her mind on making this day count. Pulling on her worn boots, she felt a rush of nervous energy course through her veins, revving her up for what lay ahead. Stepping into the sunlight, she was greeted by the vast fields before her, silent witnesses to both joy and sorrow, their overgrown weeds crowning the undertaking that lay ahead. Today, she would break ground on reclaiming this space, a testament to resilience and renewal. The thought sent an exhilarating jolt through her. Yet, a sliver of doubt shadowed the edges of her resolve. Was she truly equipped to lead this transformation? Jake joined her outside, his sturdy frame casting an elongated shadow beside hers. Today, they would take the first steps not just toward restoring their family's heritage but to heal their own fractured paths woven with loss and regret. "I've been thinking," he began, his voice steady yet taut with emotion. "We should document this process. Maybe it could help us, and others, facing similar struggles." Emily paused. The idea flickered to life, igniting her imagination. "Yes. A timeline we can keep track of, our moments, our victories, however small." She felt an undeniable pull toward the notion that perhaps by recording their journey, they could also chronicle their emotional evolution. Yet, as she organized her thoughts, memories of nights spent in quiet desperation surfaced, nights where dreams felt out of reach, and she was a mere spectator in her life. Jake's proposal stirred something in her, a latent determination to not only rise from the ashes of their past but to share their journey in an attempt to heal. "Then we should start with those friends," she declared, the emotional weight beginning to lift just a little. "They deserve to see our progress, and it gives us a reason to connect." Jake straightened, and a glimmer of enthusiasm flickered in his eyes. "All right, so who do we reach out to first?" There's a moment in planning like this when the enormity of the undertaking becomes tangible. Her hands trembled slightly as she grabbed her phone, reflecting the internal tempest holding her in its grip. The first call would be pivotal, the first thread pulled from the fabric of their past. As she scrolled through her contacts, she hesitated, blood pulsing in her ears. Would their friends be receptive to this? What if her vulnerabilities exposed by the unfolding of memories became too much for them? These questions consumed her. Her thumb hovered over a name that felt heavy with nostalgia. "Emily? You all right?" Jake's voice broke her reverie, pulling her back into the present. "Yeah, she hesitated, then took a deep breath. "I think I need to start with Lisa. She was always supportive during hard times." Jake nodded, his presence grounding her. "Then call her." The weight of her decision anchored her once more, and she dialed. The ringing resonated with each beat of her heart. Before she could question her resolve, Lisa picked up. "Hey, Emily. What's up?" The warmth in Lisa's voice evoked a surge of emotion within her. "I wanted to talk about the farm and an idea I had." As the conversation unfolded, Emily spoke through the fears layered within the memories, weaving a narrative of hope and rebirth. Lisa listened attentively, her encouraging words providing solace. Yet, as they discussed logistics, Emily could sense that Lisa sensed the undercurrent of her urgency to confront buried feelings. The call ended, but the tension didn't dissipate. They hadn't merely opened a discussion about gardening. They had begun to nudge the door open on emotions that had laid dormant and unaddressed. What would happen when they all gathered? Emily felt a swell of unsettling anticipation. Each connection rekindled might also reignite old wounds. She feared the revelations yet to come and if they would fracture the fragile mosaic they were piecing together. Jake watched her closely, the unspoken understanding passing between them. There was more at stake here than just soil, seeds, and timber. "Is this a good thing?" she mused aloud, anxiety rasping at her words. Jake took a step closer. "Only if we can face it together. We can't avoid what lies beneath just because it's uncomfortable." Her heart swelled against the weight of rising energy within. This was the crux of it: acceptance, vulnerability, and the unforgiving clarity that healing was never linear. Emily understood that they had opened a door to confront what had ensnared them in silence for far too long. They stood together on the edge of their farm, the tension hanging thick in the air. What new vulnerabilities would emerge as they breathed life into shared memories? Would they be strong enough to navigate the storms together? As they took their first steps forward, uncertainty danced in the air around them, casting long shadows over the day's intentions. The true work was only just beginning, and with every decision came the realization: confronting the buried feelings might lead to revelations neither had anticipated. Yet, in the midst of that tension, Emily couldn't shake the growing conviction that perhaps their greatest victories would rise from the very thing they feared the most. The moment of truth loomed ahead, and she wondered, would they be able to embrace the truth buried beneath the soil, and fully reclaim what had been lost? With the sun now high in the sky, blossoms of determination unfurled within Emily. She could no longer escape the depths of her own uncertainty. The lush land calling for revival paralleled the neglected corners of her heart. Each step toward the overgrown fields felt like a step toward rediscovering her agency and awakening from the lethargy that had cloaked her existence for too long. Jake's presence remained a tether to her intentions, his steady demeanor offering a refuge of camaraderie amid the chaos. As they surveyed the challenge before them, Emily felt the weight of the past pooling in the corners of her mind, a labyrinth of regrets and lost opportunities waiting to be traversed. They had decided to allocate the day to weeding, an act that would serve both the garden and their own psyches. Emily knelt down, hands molding into the earth, and began to pull at the tangled roots of stubborn plants. The physical labor pushed her into a rhythm, and soon, her resolve transformed into a meditative state that allowed her mind to wander. What if this was more than just a restoration of land? What if it held the key to mending their fractured lives? The thought ignited a flicker of possibility. What had kept her rooted in hesitation for so long? Fear? Shame? The familiar despair was entangled with the underbrush she wrestled with now. It dawned on her that she had treated her grief like the weeds. The more she ignored it, the more it grew. The sweat glistened on her forehead as she wiped her brow and stopped to catch her breath. Between the pauses, she envisioned the scarring, unspoken words she had carried like a burden, silently woven into the narrative of her life. She couldn't help but realize how these feelings had stunted her growth. The roots of pain could only flourish unchecked if she never engaged with them. Jake joined her in the toiling, his diligence matching her determination. "It's kind of therapeutic, right?" he said, glancing her way with a sense of understanding that reached far beyond words. Emily smiled, a spark igniting within her. "Yeah, it really is. I think I've been so caught up in what I haven't achieved, I forgot to see what's worth fighting for." "You're doing that now," he replied softly, offering a nod of encouragement. Motivated by his affirmation, Emily continued pulling weeds, but now she focused on identifying the roots beneath the surface. If she unearths the stories that shaped them, the ones she feared would drag her into the shadows, perhaps she could redefine the path ahead. Each uprooted weed became less of a chore and more of a necessary confrontation. The afternoon sun bore down, imbuing the moment with an almost surreal quality. Emily felt invigorated, and the rush of energy propelled her to work faster, to dig deeper. She couldn't ignore the creeping doubt, yet her newfound perspective hummed with clarity. Laying bare the pain meant liberation, an act of personal reclamation rather than just purification of the soil. As she temporarily paused, sweat-soaked and exhausted, her phone buzzed in her pocket. The vibration cut through the stillness, her heartbeat ebbing and flowing in tune with the debilitating pulse of uncertainty. It was a text from Lisa, her heart racing at the unexpected communication. "Hey Em. Just checking in. I'm excited about this project. Can we talk about what we could document?" The simple inquiry felt like both a life buoy and a weighted anchor. Emily exhaled slowly, realizing that Lisa, too, stood on the precipice of open dialogue. The surface of their friendship could create ripples if they empowered one another to delve deeper. "Can we talk later?" she texted back, but instead of waiting, an impulse washed over her. She dialed Lisa's number. "Hey," Lisa answered, and this time, there was a deep resonance of connection in her voice. "I just needed to hear your voice, you know." Emily admitted, her internal walls cracking ever so slightly. As the conversation unfolded, she began to articulate her own inner struggles. Lisa listened, urging her to explore not just the farm's revival but the revival of her spirit. Emily confronted layers of her identity, whispering her aspirations of becoming more than a caretaker of the land. She longed to be an authentic architect of her destiny, no longer just surviving, but truly living. "Let us make this a journey of discovery," Lisa suggested, her excitement tangible even over the phone. "You'll be documenting not only the transformation of the land, but the transformation of how you see yourself." The tremors of unease stirred again, but Emily felt something new emerging, a soft light pushing against the darkness. Would sharing these truths with Lisa and others be enough to ward off her fears? Or would the act of unveiling her vulnerabilities backfire? With newfound purpose, Emily's heart raced as she hung up. "What have you discovered in all this?" she questioned herself. Perhaps the greatest unearthing of all would come from the shared moments ahead, the connections she would redefine as they ventured deeper into the unknown. Stepping into the shifting landscape of their farm, uncertainty spiraled around her again, mingling with expectancy. Would she be prepared to expose her innermost self to those she loved? What secrets loomed just beneath the surface, waiting for the right kind of sunlight to break through? More importantly, would the act of vulnerability lead to newfound strength, or would it reveal fissures too deep to repair? The sun dipped lower, casting elongated shadows across the field, an invitation to delve deeper and a warning of the transformative tales still buried within her reach. Emily stood in the fading light, grappling with the intersections of her past choices and the promises of future transformations. The call with Lisa reinforced her desire to document not only the farm's restoration but the profound evolution that was beginning to unfold within her. Yet a familiar heaviness settled in her chest as he considered the magnitude of what lay ahead. Her willingness to open up could very well change everything. As she returned to her work, the sun kissed the horizon, igniting the sky in hues of orange and violet. The beauty momentarily distracted her from the cacophony within. What began as an earnest effort to revive the land became a personal excavation, and with each weed uprooted, she felt stubborn memories breaking free. The late afternoon air turned crisp, whispering secrets of potential. It was time for a dialogue beyond the surface. She knew now that her stories carried weight, and unearthing them would be integral to her healing. But as the day waned, she also felt the tug of doubt. Would she find the strength to share her vulnerabilities? Might they become a bridge or a barrier? Jake emerged from behind a cluster of wildflowers, his hands resting on either side of his hips. "You okay?" he asked, tilting his head as he noticed the distant look in her eyes. Emily paused. "Yeah, just thinking about everything ahead," she replied, her voice quieter than before. The steadfastness she usually found in Jake now felt like a lifeline, his presence embodying steady support amid her internal storm. "Are you ready for it?" he probed gently, engaging her to question the depths of her commitments. She breathed in deeply. "I want to be. It's just. I feel buoyed by this project, but I'm scared of what might surface." The whispered fear that stayed hidden for so long crept through her lips. What's scarier? What comes up, or keeping it all buried? Jake challenged, his eyes shimmering with unspoken encouragement. He had the uncanny ability to mirror her thoughts, provoking her to confront them directly. Instinctively, she straightened up, fully aware that growth was not forged through avoidance. Confronting the past means facing regrets. Emily began, grappling with the rawness of memories that lingered unprocessed. But it could also mean healing, right? What if releasing those layers is the first step toward becoming who you want to be? His words resonated with an unexpected conviction that cut through her fears. With a reluctant smile, Emily realized she had spent far too long tethered to her insecurities. "You're right," she admitted, feeling a flicker of hope ignite within her. "But what if those secrets change how everyone sees me? How will Lisa react? Is there a risk I'm not willing to take?" The sun had slipped below the horizon, enshrining them in twilight. An ache of vulnerability gnawed at her, yet she knew this was merely the first step toward authentic relationships, or at least she hoped it would forge connections rather than deepening isolation. "Then you'll have to decide which is more valuable, the fear of rejection or the chance for genuine connection, Jake advised, grounding her in the moment. You'll have to weigh what it takes to be true to yourself, even if it's unsettling. As they stood in the darkening field, she wrestled with that notion. Would disclosing her past tether her to it, or liberate her from its confines? She trembled at the thought of being truly seen, and yet yearned to inhabit a space where she could be authentic, both in her journey and in her relationships. The first stars emerged, twinkling defiantly against the surrounding void, much like the glimmers of potential within her. Drawing a deep breath, Emily reached out for Jake's hand, a silent acknowledgement of solidarity. Tomorrow, she would write to Lisa, to herself unearthing those concealed feelings and aspirations. As they readied to leave the field behind for the night, Emily caught a glimpse of the intertwined roots and vines beneath them, a visual metaphor of her own tangled narrative. She would commit to untangling those threads in her written words, expanding beyond the confines of her fears. Tomorrow would bring the dawn, and with it, the promise of exploration, courage, and uncharted accomplishments. They had almost reached the edge of the field when Emily's phone buzzed again, a promising yet jarring reminder of her world beyond the farm. Could tomorrow nurture more than just the land? Would it spark the rekindling of connections long thought impervious to growth? The prospect both thrilled and terrified her. Before she glanced to her phone, a creeping thought enveloped her. What if the unexpected message challenged everything she had just begun to embrace? Emily awoke the next morning to the symphony of birds greeting the dawn. Sunlight streamed through her window, a warm reassurance that today would be hers to shape. She lay in bed, trepidation lingering just below the surface. The path ahead, nearly within reach, felt at once exhilarating and daunting. She had promised to confront her past, yet now, in the precious silence of the morning, the weight of that resolution bore heavily on her. As she moved through her routine, her mind drifted back to Jake's gentle challenge. How could she truly embrace her future without acknowledging the past? Doubt crept in, wrapping itself around her intentions. What if her words didn't carry the connection she craved? What if they alienated her from the very people she hoped to unite in her journey? Pushing these thoughts aside, Emily made her way to the kitchen. The smell of brewing coffee filled the air, coaxing her nervous soul into a semblance of calm. In the midst of that cozy atmosphere, she sat at the small oak table, the sun illuminating the spot where she would start to write. With a deep breath, Emily opened her journal, its pages yearning for the imprint of her thoughts. In a tentative hand, she began to craft her letter to Lisa. She wrote about the restoration of the farm but also delved deeper, letting her pen wander to the untouched corners of her heart. The ink flowed, her fears and hopes intertwining seamlessly. As her mind poured out onto the page, moments from her past became clearer. She could see the stubborn roots of regret but also the blossoms of growth that had emerged from them. Each stroke of the pen coaxed out memories she had long buried, like weeds that needed to be uprooted for the garden to thrive. What emerged was surprisingly cathartic, the act itself an offering of vulnerability she hadn't anticipated. She recounted the moments of isolation, her inhalations of fear, and the rush of courage that slowly replaced it. Yet somewhere in the chronology, a sense of resolve began to take shape. This wasn't merely about sharing her story, it was about paving the way for others, sparking connections that could intertwine her narrative with theirs. She paused, the pen hovering above the page. The internal conflict knotted again. What about her son? How would he fit into this unfolding saga? She had avoided thinking too much about him. Would sharing her truth fracture the relationship she desperately wanted to nurture? With that thought, a rattling sound broke her reverie. Her phone buzzed again, an unwelcome intrusion. The tension in her chest tightened as she glanced at the screen. It was a message from Tyler, the son whose life felt like a distant echo, a reminder of choices that had led her here. Her heart raced. What if he needed her? What if this communication forced her to confront everything she feared? Emboldened yet apprehensive, she read the message. It was a simple request to meet, no context, no elaboration. The weight of that small, rectangular screen felt immense in her palm. This wasn't just any typical day on her farm, it was a threshold to a new reality brewing within her, one that could either elevate her into authenticity or plunge her back into self-doubt. Keenly aware of the impact of her decisions, Emily found herself at a crossroad. She could ignore the text, retreat behind the comfort of the farm's rustling leaves and blossoming flowers. Or she could embrace this uncharted territory, opening a door that led toward potential healing, both for herself and her relationship with Tyler. Emily stood up from the table, the scent of coffee forgotten. She paced the room, the concept of meeting him stirring both excitement and anxiety. A knot of determination formed if she was ready to reveal her story. Perhaps she also owed it to herself to embark on this journey with Tyler. What would she say? How much of her past could be shared without creating further distance? With a rush of resolve, she returned to the table, every intention shaped by the idea that true healing involves facing not only her own shadows but also the truths of those she held dear. As she took a seat again, Emily felt the landscape of her emotions shift. Navigating this delicate balance between the past and present would require courage beyond what she had previously mustered, yet it was a challenge she felt ready to meet. The screen of her phone glowed brightly, an invitation to connect, to open herself fully. She began typing a response, her fingers dancing over the keys with newfound purpose. But even as she allowed hope to swell within her, another question loomed: would this meeting unravel more than she was prepared to handle? The moment of choice pressed upon her as she sought to found her voice. Would she confront the past not only in her words but also in her life, in the face-to-face interaction with the son she had missed for so long? Emily could feel the adrenaline coursing through her as she hit send, knowing that every step toward that meeting would tread on uncertain ground. And as the message vanished into the ether, she wondered, was the path she'd chosen one leading to liberation, or, perhaps, the unearthing of buried truths she might not be ready to heed? The quiet of the kitchen now buzzed with a different kind of energy, one laced with anticipation and uncertainty. Emily set the phone down, her heart racing in sync with her thoughts. The decision to meet Tyler felt monumental, an unraveling thread that could either weave their lives together or tear them apart even further. Clarity eluded her as she tried to visualize the conversation ahead. Would she be able to navigate this emotional terrain without losing herself? The sunlight shining through the window felt warmer, almost like a tangible embrace, encouraging her to step forward. She took a moment to collect herself, a few deep breaths, a focus on the cadence of her pulse. Each intake of air whispered a reminder that she could no longer exist in the shadows of her choices. The farm, once a sanctuary turned battleground within her own mind, needed her active participation. So did her relationship with her son. She glanced back at her open journal. The thoughts she had penned earlier flowed through her mind, serving as a gentle beacon guiding her toward authenticity. Every vulnerability she had outlined in that letter now felt more urgent. Meeting Tyler could amplify her resolve to share not only a story of hurt but also of transformation. Was this meeting, then, a chance to rewrite their narrative, to redefine their bond in light of painful truths and shared dreams? After brewing another cup of coffee half-heartedly yet instinctively, Emily's thoughts drifted back to Lisa. The weight of that letter lingered in the back of her mind. Perhaps there was a correlation between what she would tell Tyler and the revelations she sought to express to her sister. Both conversations demanded her to be raw, to be honest, and above all, to be brave. Through the window, she spotted a crow perched on a nearby fence post, its glossy feathers catching sunlight. It cawed loudly, a stark, uninvited interruption to her contemplation. It was as if it was challenging her to step out of her introspection, to face the realities of her life head-on. The symbolism wasn't lost on her. She needed to gather her courage, to unfurl her wings just as the crow did every day, to soar above the ordinary. "All right, let us do this," she whispered to herself, energized by a blend of resolve and trepidation. Emily gathered her journal and a pen, and headed outdoors, the scent of freshly tilled soil welcoming her. The vibrant greens of the farm contrasted sharply with the inner conflict swirling within her, a reflection of the duality she'd been grappling with, nurturing the land while attempting to heal her broken relationship with Tyler. Settling down on a sun-drenched patch of grass, she began to draft thoughts for both the letter to Lisa and her impending meeting with her son. She let the words flow, keeping the focus on the essence of her feelings, the fear, the hope, and the desire to forge a connection stronger than the scars of the past. As she wrote, she experienced a moment of clarity. This was not just about unveiling her history, it was also about allowing herself the grace to be imperfect. About embracing the reality that vulnerability opens doorways for healing, not just for her but for Tyler too. The act of connecting could lead to revelations she hadn't considered, and that realization lit a fire within her. Just as she finished another line, her phone buzzed, jarring her from her focus. A message from Tyler. It simply read, "Can we meet today?" Her heart raced anew, the weight of that request bearing down on her. Today? Was she prepared for this conversation? Her instinct was to hesitate, to retreat into indecision, yet another part of her shouted to seize this opportunity. Who knew how this unplanned meeting could redefine their relationship? Taking a deep breath, she squashed the reservations threatening to undo her momentum. Weighing the pros and cons flickered through her mind briefly, only to dissolve under the fervor of that unfamiliar illumination guiding her. She responded with a crisp, decisive yes, "I'll meet you." "What time?" With the message sent and a strange mix of eagerness and fear coursing through her, Emily sat in thoughtful stillness. The moment had arrived, decisions were being made, and the past was uncoiling itself like the tendrils of a vine seeking sunlight. She could sense that this was just the beginning, that the choices she made today would demand her to confront more than just her son, they would challenge her to embrace the unwritten chapters of her own life. Emily's heart was now a drumbeat of hope and anxiety as she anticipated the next steps. She could no longer return to silence after this encounter. The unearthed truths would demand attention, but what she hoped for was a bridge built on honesty and vulnerability, one that could illuminate the way forward. And as thoughts of what lay ahead clouded her mind, she pondered, could this meeting with Tyler be the turning point she had been searching for? Would she finally find the words to heal their fractured bond? Emily sat at the picnic table beneath the sprawling oak tree, the tender whispers of the morning breeze washing over her. The sun filtered through the leaves, casting playful shadows on the ground and wrapping her in a warm embrace. Today was the day she would meet Tyler, her son, whom she had missed deeply. The weight of anticipation pressed against her chest, and she could feel the butterfly flutters of both hope and trepidation swirling inside. About an hour before their planned meeting, she took a moment to breathe. She had spent days writing and rewriting her thoughts for Lisa, pouring her heart out in an effort to sort through her emotions. Now it was her turn to articulate the lessons of her past to Tyler. She reread her notes, the words resonating with newfound clarity: honesty, healing, connection. The purpose was clear, yet the fearless execution was daunting. Her mind drifted to her journey, every weed pulled, every seed sown, and she recognized the parallels with her relationship with Tyler. Just as she had lovingly tended to the farm, she needed to cultivate this familial bond. They both had endured loss, yet Emily realized the essence of their struggles could launch them into a renewed understanding of love if only she found the courage to share. As the minutes ticked by, Emily felt her resolve solidify. The shadows of her past no longer shackled her, instead, they illuminated the depth of her connection to Tyler. Their shared grief could lead to reconciliation, new memories, and, ultimately, wholeness. She would not let fear dictate their encounter today. When Tyler arrived, she recognized him instantly. He stepped out of his car, the sunlight catching the contours of his face, bringing forth the boy she had cherished yet struggled to communicate with for years. Her heart pounded a quickened rhythm as their eyes locked. "Hey, Mom," he greeted, a hint of uncertainty in his voice. "Hey, Tyler," she replied, her voice steady, albeit tinged with vulnerability. "Thank you for coming." They settled into silence momentarily, the tension hanging thick in the air like a palpable fog. Both of them sensed the weight of the conversation ahead. Yet as Emily cast her gaze toward the rolling fields, a surge of nostalgia washed over her, anchoring her in this moment. This was their legacy, the land that held echoes of laughter and memories, laden with unconditional love. "Can we talk about the farm?" Emily broke the silence, the gravity of her words creating a ripple effect. She needed him to understand that the topics of her heart extended far beyond soil and crops. This was about preserving their family history, their place in each other's lives. Tyler nodded. "Yeah, I've been thinking about that." His eyes softened momentarily, revealing the vulnerability she longed to embrace. "I wanted to talk about us too." Her breath hitched. This was at the intersection of their paths, where pain met the promise of healing. I want to apologize for my silence over the last few months, she began, her voice steady. I was lost after Dad passed, and I didn't know how to reach out. I should have done better. I miss you, Tyler. His response was immediate, a flash of recognition that sparked a light in their shared shadow. I've struggled too, you know. I didn't want to burden you. Selling the farm felt like losing everything, but really, I think I was just trying to escape the memories. Yes, Emily affirmed, but your journey doesn't have to be alone. We can find a way through this together. They spoke openly, their words cutting through years of insurmountable grief like sunlight piercing dark clouds. Tyler conveyed an honesty that Emily had longed to hear, his struggles spilling out against the backdrop of their shared memories. In turn, she opened up about her darkest moments, the weight of responsibilities and grief engulfing her in a fierce storm of isolation. As Tyler listened, Emily could see a shift, the layers of tension peeling away to reveal a shared vulnerability. Mom, I want to honor Dad, but sometimes I just don't know how, he said, his voice shaking. It feels easier to run than stay and face the hurt. In that moment, Emily saw what she had been seeking, a reflection of her own struggles intertwined with his. Avoidance won't heal us. It's only through the discomfort of facing our challenges that we will begin to blossom again. Let us continue to cultivate this place together. Our family deserves it. Tyler's expression softened, the recognition of her words sinking in. Emily felt a surge of hope, a glimmer of a shared path that had the potential to reignite their bond, to rebuild the roots that had once flourished between them. Can we bring back the garden? Tyler asked after a pause, a tentative smile creeping across his face. You know, work on it together, just like before? Absolutely. She replied, her heart soaring. We can revitalize everything together, honor Dad while creating new memories. The enthusiasm crackled in the air, bridging the gap between them. In that moment, they were not just mother and son, they were allies, locked in a shared journey toward healing and a brighter tomorrow. They began to envision a community garden, a vibrant space where they could cultivate more than crops, they would cultivate relationships, hope, and legacy. As they stood up from their seats, Emily felt rejuvenated, her heart brimming with renewed purpose. Their familial bond, like the soil beneath their feet, was rich with potential. Together they could rebuild more than just the farm, they could restore the essence of their family. Walking toward the fields, arm in arm, Emily felt a sense of profound connection to her son. The journey had only begun, but each step forward sang of possibility and renewal. In this moment, she understood her own transformation. She had transformed from a woman silently grappling with grief into a mother ready to confront her past and embrace the future alongside her son. They were both on a quest for restoration, and together they would navigate whatever lay ahead. This feeling of shared purpose urged her on, a spark ignited, and Emily realized they would rise together, a family reborn, rooted in history and blossoming into the future. As they stood before the land, the sun dipped low, painting the horizon in shades of warmth. The dawn of a new beginning awaited them, knotted together by love, resilience, and a family legacy that would flourish once more. Now, this is the moment to seize your emotional journey. Do not miss out on more exclusive stories. You need to subscribe now to the channel, so you won't miss any upcoming emotional adventures. If you found satisfaction in this conclusion, leave a like now to fuel the algorithm and light the way for others seeking inspiration. We want to hear from you. Comment your thoughts, reactions, or theories about this ending. Every voice matters. And finally, don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformative conclusion. Join us in spreading this message of hope and healing.